Welcome to my channel, Frugal Living. Today I'm going to complete the conversation I had with Ilesha Coco on distance learning on a budget. If you're interested in that, stay tuned.
This first part was really awesome. I know I say this on every single interview, but I will have to say it again. I'm getting a lot from this, and I'm going to use these tips from the distance learning for myself with my teenager. Let's continue on. What kind of things do you think parents should invest in to aid in their children's education? Because there may be a financial investment, but what I would like to say is, parents, if you're thinking of it, you always have to do back to school shopping and all these different things. So I think it's just allocated in maybe a little bit of a different way. So what do you think parents can invest in?
I think one, just starting off with, that's a great point, because we probably aren't doing the same amount of back to school shopping, clothes shopping, all the things that we're typically putting money into because, hey, we're schooling at home. But where can we then invest in that? One, let me start with some resources that may not be as expensive and then move into some other things that parents might want to invest in. So looking at, programs that you can download on your child's phone or iPad or computer, some that are free. I really love just going into Khan Academy because that's a free resource that really helps with math. Also, if you look at a lot of publishers, probably the same ones that your child uses for school, they have online resources. Scholastic has a ton of online resources that you can access. I would also say looking at where can you invest in things that are extracurricular. So maybe something like Rosetta Stone, where they might have an opportunity to learn language, maybe some type of music app or program, drawing, something where they are engaging in like the extracurricular elective things that they might not typically, that they might be missing because they're not in a school setting. But where can you invest in those things that really enhance the whole child is where I would really put my resources. And that's, unless your child is struggling, then really looking at maybe even there's just some tutoring or some support if your child is struggling academically and it's really hard for them to manage some of that time of learning on their own.
That's a great idea because I know that a lot of times, since we are at home, also that's another point. We're not investing in some of the extracurriculars because they're on pause right now. You don't need the new soccer shoes or, equipment or whatever for football and different sports because they're going to be delayed. So the money that's a lot of savings right now that are not going out. Of course, some of it will go out later potentially, but you still, have a lot that you're not necessarily spending money on. So that's a great idea of things that parents can do right now.
Yeah.
I'd also say is, and that kind of leads into the next question about the free and low cost resources. I think you covered it pretty much with Khan Academy. Are there any other resources that you can think of?
So I would say, again, Scholastic has a lot of free resources. If you also look at publishers for, even if it's not your child's publisher, oftentimes like Open Court, Benchmark, these are all publishing companies. iReady, Ready Math, they have free online resources that you can access, both math and language arts. Those are good places. And then, they're also standards aligned to really help you if your child needs some additional support.
Oh, that's really good because that's another thing I've been hearing a lot of parents mention is that, okay, I don't know Common Core, I don't know these standards, and to have the sites that kind of give you that direction, parents are kind of able to be able to see what they need to know or show to their kids at that time. So that's really great. How can parents prepare for the long haul? This ends up lasting. I think none of us really thought it would last as long. I remember when we said we were leaving, it's like, okay, we'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
I personally was really big on saying, I think people are blowing this way out of proportion. This is going to be a couple of weeks of people, getting nervous, and we're going to be back to things business as usual, and it's been, I don't even know, 5-6 months now. I mean, I'm losing count at this point. But
yeah, it's true, right? In March, we thought we'll be back in May. And then we thought for sure we'll be back before school ends, or when school ends, we'll for sure be back when school starts. And then here we are, and we don't know when we may be, like you said, January, February, it may be the whole school. So I think as much as parents can think about, we thought this was going to be a sprint. It's going to be more of a marathon that we've got to like pace ourselves in it. But developing a schedule, even if it's kind of loose and it's not as tight as you would like, but at least giving your child, these are your work times, these are your break times, these are, your fun times. And so that it doesn't you don't want your child to think it's vacation. It still has to have some learning elements in the day. I think also allowing your child some downtime, as we in our district are gearing up for school to start distance learning. And I'm looking at some of these schedules that teachers are building. I'm like, wow, we're thinking kids are going to sit in front of a screen for 6 hours. One, I don't know if that's going to happen. But if your child has had to sit in front of a screen 4, 5, 6 hours, it's okay to let them play, let them have some downtime, because that's a lot of time directed to a computer. We know how we feel about that. So giving your child extra opportunities for just taking brain breaks and engaging in unstructured activities. I think also another piece that I don't think we talk enough about is the mental health component. So keeping, kind of just tabs on how your child is doing mental health wise, because this is very different for them. It can be very isolating for them. So if there's ways that you can incorporate mindfulness activities or journaling or just checking in and creating virtual opportunities for them to connect with friends. So setting up Zoom dates, setting up times for them to still connect with their friends, I think will be really important in the long run, because they need those connections. And so looking for ways that they can still have a social aspect of their life, even in a distant or virtual format.
That's really good, because I feel like as parents, and I kind of fell into this having a teenager, she's like, oh, there's no school, so I'm fine. And she, we were fine, but as it's continued, we kind of connected, and I realized, okay, she's not doing fine anymore because she was really missing friends. Yeah. And we found some ways to help her become connected. But yes, that is so key, because this is a long time, especially for younger kids who can't really articulate how they're feeling. They may just act out, getting upset, and tantrums, whatever. And it's like, okay, what is really going on? And I think that's really important. And that's something that not a lot of people, we're starting to talk about it more, but it's something that we do need to really remember. So the thing I also wanted to say is, can you maybe, and I'm kind of adding this in, can you maybe give a little bit, because I was just thinking about that as you were talking about the schedule. And I know that for me personally, I have made an attempt, even for my toddler. My teen is actually pretty good at kind of doing her own thing and knowing what she needs to do. But for those of us who have younger children, how do you kind of have a schedule for them? Maybe just give us, a loose schedule that you might, because I, as a teacher at first year, especially last year, I had lofty goals. These kids were going to be doing these pages of work. And I had some that didn't even do anything. And I'm just like, wait, I'm like preparing videos. I'm doing all these things. And it's like, they're not even doing any of it. So is there something, especially in the kids I work with, were 2nd and 3rd graders. So they were not the youngest, but not the oldest. So they still needed that direction from parents. And a lot of things I was hearing was, how do we kind of get them on a schedule? Some parents were great. You need to sit down, do this from this time to other. But others really struggled because they were trying to balance working and all that. So is there just maybe a general schedule that you can kind of throw out there and give to us?
I'll try. So I think some of it will be determined by school, because some of the schools are going to be developing their own times when teachers are on providing live instruction. But I like to think about giving enough leeway to the day so that your child has some time. I mean, obviously to like eat breakfast and those, but get some movement in before they start the school day. Because again, they could be sitting in front of that computer for a long time. So almost think of it like their PE time or their movement time or something that they get to do first thing before they then sit down to their lessons. And if there is some flexibility in the day where, you know, the school hasn't mapped out, I always think start with the more difficult subject first, so you get that out the way where your child is freshest. So if that's math or language arts or science, but really work on that while they're fresh and it's early, and then it's like the celebration, like, look, we got the hardest thing out of the day, the rest of the day will be a breeze. Frequent breaks, because that, I think, again, they can't, it's a long time to expect them to absorb. And so if I had to sketch it out, I would say movement first thing, attack whatever subject matter is the most difficult. Try not to have them sitting more than, I like to think of it as like if they're in second grade, again, if you have the flexibility to do this, you know, second grade, 20 minutes, third grade, 30 minutes, fourth grade, 40 minutes, without a break. So maybe I'm working for 20, even if it's just a 2-3 minute movement break, and then get back in. So kind of think about it as their grade level times, you know, like 10 minutes, and that's about it. So fifth grade should be able to do 50 minutes, and, you know, high schoolers should be able to do a little bit more. But try and then have them, so frequent breaks. And then I would try to shut the day off by 1 or 2 o'clock is, you know, if possible, and then just let them have some, you know, kind of downtime. And then if you want to come back in the evening for like their homework. But I think the breaks will be really important, as well as really being mindful of how often they get up and move, and attacking that most difficult subject first.
Wow, that was really good. I mean, I know I kind of threw that at you, but
okay.
those are really good key things, because looking at the age times 10, that right there alone, it's like, okay, if you're expecting your child to sit down for 6 hours, you're just going to be pulling your hair out trying to get them to do it. There's going to be frustration. So having those little breaks throughout, even if it's a couple minutes, that's a really good idea.
And you think about that because you're a teacher, we both taught, right? Even when we're teaching in the classroom, even though language arts might be an hour, we're not always having these children sit for an hour. We might be talking, then we have them work in groups, then we might have them, you know, then they're coming to the carpet, they might be getting a story, then they're going back. So they are, you know, changing things up frequently, even if it's within that hour, you know, of language arts time. And so we have to think about that with our own kiddos at home. They've got to have at least a time to get up and move or stretch or, you know, do change up the activity, even if it's within the same content area.
And parents may not realize that, you know, they don't, you know, they're not at school. So you don't know. It's like, okay, just sit down and do your work. And it's like, well, you know, they don't just sit down and do their work. I'm sure that, let me just say, parents have a lot more appreciation for their teachers now. It's
I think so.
This is not easy. I think so. I think when they finally do get back into school, they will have a lot less complaints.
I agree.
Are there some final words of hope that you can give parents that are kind of balancing all this? Just because I would like to keep it, and I think this conversation has been really positive, because I want to keep it positive. I hear a lot of complaints and a lot of people not liking things, but at the end of the day, this is what we have to deal with. And if there's a positive outlook that we can take out of it, a takeaway, then that's a good thing for all of us.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've just tried to keep in mind, I was sharing this with my daughter. My children are adults, but my younger one is home because her college has been online, and we just said there's no sense of us paying for an apartment for you to sit in your room and do work when you could be here sitting in your room to do work. But one of the things we just really talked about is, even though it has been completely disruptive and unexpected, that there have been little points of silver lining, just, like her and I being able to spend more time together, or, cooking meals together, or just things that we've been able to have conversations about that we probably wouldn't have otherwise. And so I think we have to just find those moments. Like, yes, it's crazy, it's chaotic. I feel for families with younger children who are trying to, manage being the teacher and the cook and the maid and and working their own jobs and all of those things. I don't want to make light of that is not difficult, but where you can find those little moments to say, oh man, if we weren't in this situation, we wouldn't have been able to do this. So take that time, even if it's just sitting out on your porch together, or, getting the sidewalk chalk and, make a hopscotch, or, biking or walking, or inviting them in to help with meals, but things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do with them, and just try to see this as an opportunity to connect that we wouldn't have had otherwise. In the midst, like I said, I don't want to downplay that it's really challenging, but I think we have to really reset our minds, our mindset about it, because we could be in for a long haul. And so how do we continue to find the little thread of positivity, I think is really important.
Oh, wow. I love that, because actually on my other interview we talked about how we've seen a lot of families getting out and riding bikes together. Yes. Because nobody had time. They're rushing to get from work. And we've been eating dinner together more. I've always tried to do that, but once, when your kids get older, it's kind of hard to do that because they're involved in extracurricular activities, yep, things at school, youth group, and they're gone. So it's kind of like, okay, I want to have dinner together, but you're going to be here. You're women's Bible study. We're doing dad, is doing men's group. So it's kind of hard. But now with everything stopped, it's kind of like having more conversations and time together. So I really appreciate that, everything you've been sharing with us today. And I was so excited that you agreed to do this. Yes.
Yay, I'm glad you asked.
So I think that everybody is going to get a lot from this. And I'm going to link all the ways to contact you. Okay. Like you said, you have your podcast, you're a life coach, you do a little bit of it all. So I'm going to make sure I add all that in the description so people can kind of follow you and see the things that you're doing. And I really want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation I had with Ilesha Coco Graham. She gave lots of helpful tips for those of us who are doing distance learning or virtual learning. I know that's something that I'm doing, and I know that there's a lot of things that she said that I am definitely going to use myself. Also, I'm going to link in the description how to follow Coco. And I'm going to put some of the resources that she mentioned in the description, as well as linking my most recent video that talks about free and low cost items on a budget, educational items on a budget. Last but never least, happy savings!